Are carbs really the enemy, or is it how you eat them that's the problem? Today I'm going to show you how to eat carbs the smart way so that you can enjoy all your meals while keeping your energy stable, your blood sugar controlled, and your health thriving. So what are the three main things we're going to talk about today? One, what carb smart eating means. Two, how to choose better carbs. And three, how you can enjoy carbs for life without the guilt. So let's get on to the first part. What does carb smart eating mean? Now, carb smart eating is certainly not cutting carbs. Carb smart eating is choosing the right carbs in the right amounts at the right time. So what are the right carbs? Well, to figure out what the right carbs are, let's think about the two main types of carbs. We have simple carbs and we have complex carbs. Now, simple carbs, those are lonely carbs. They come plain starch, plain sugar. So no friends at all. So this is your white rice, your white potato, your white pasta, your sweetened drinks, your cookies, your cakes. These are simple carbs, just simple starch, simple sugar. All right, now compare this to your complex carbs. Complex carbs compared to the lonely simple carbs, complex carbs have a lot of company, a lot of friends. Now, we're not talking about bad company like artificial sweeteners and preservatives and artificial colors and other random chemical fillers. We're talking about good company such as fiber, such as protein, such as fats, naturally occurring fats. So your complex carbs would be your whole grains, right? So your quinoa, your whole wheat, your buckwheat, your amaranth, some of those ancient grains, right? Of course, obviously your fruits and your vegetables, those will come with some good friendly fiber. Your nuts and seeds, those come with good friendly protein and healthy naturally occurring fat. Okay, your legumes, peas, beans, again with good friendly fiber, protein as well, maybe a little fat. Okay, so these are your complex carbs which have good friends and they're having a good time, and because they're having such a good time, they're keeping the energy levels up, and the energy levels last for a longer time compared to your simple lonely carbs that they'll give you a quick spurt of energy, but then they fizzle out very quickly, falling through the cracks and disappearing very quickly. Okay, so in talking about the right types of carbs, you want to go with those nice friendly complex carbs compared to the lonely simple carbs. Now, what about the right amounts? Now, if you're choosing the right carbs, automatically the right amount will come, because the thing about the right carbs, because it's coming with good company, is going to give you more of the energy and nutrients you need all in one go, so that you will stop eating at a natural time because your body got what it needed, compared to simple carbs where you're just getting a quick spurt of pure energy, just pure starch or sugar, right? And so you're not going to get all the other things, and your body is going to keep wanting more. You're going to have cravings for more food still, because your body did not get those other friendly foods, the protein, the fat, and so on. Okay, so if you choose the right carbs, the right amount comes automatically, and you don't have to worry about measuring and so on too much, right? Now, what about the right time? So we spoke about how Carb Smart is choosing the right carbs in the right amounts at the right times. What do I mean by the right times? Well, ideally, you want to have carbs around the time when you're going to be burning some energy. So you don't want to have a lot of carbs and then you go and sit down, because then the energy doesn't get burned, so it's going to get stored. What's it going to get stored as? It's going to get stored as fat all around and in places such as the liver, right? A bad time, a classic example of a bad time for carbs would be at night or in the evening, especially just before bedtime, because you're going to get all those carbs and then you're going to go to bed. Nothing much is being burned, and so it's going to be stored. You're going to go to bed in fat storage mode and store all that during your sleep, right? What about early morning? You might say, okay, early morning, well, I'm going to be up and around and I'm going to go burn off all that energy. Maybe, but in reality, a lot of us, unfortunately, have sedentary jobs. And some of you listening here might have sedentary jobs. Additionally, if you're having carbs first thing in the morning after waking up, especially if it happens to be simple carbs that are not coming with good friends, then that simple, those lonely carbs are going to go straight into your system and again overwhelm you because you're having them on an empty stomach and there's nothing in there to have a party and slow down the release of that energy so that you get it over a longer period of time. So the best time would be during the middle of the day, right? So that you can maximize the amount that you're going to burn. So 2 bad times: first thing in the morning on an empty stomach and at bedtime just before you go to sleep. Best time might be around the middle of the day. Okay, so that is what we're talking about in terms of the right time for your carbs. Now let's move on to part 2. How do you choose better carbs? And this is super important. Okay, first thing to do is look for added sugar. You want to look for added sugar in whatever it is you're going to eat, and you want to avoid it as much as possible. You want to choose those foods that don't have added sugar. If there's any sugar in whatever it is that you're eating, you want to be the one that's adding your sugar. You want to be in control of how much sugar you're eating, rather than have some random factory or company decide for you how much sugar you're going to eat, right? So look for added sugar in foods, and remember that there are multiple different names for sugar. So you might see high fructose corn syrup, you might see dextrose, you might see cane juice crystals, right? I mean, so many dextrose, so many different names for sugar. In fact, there are probably about 100 names for sugar. So you want to get smart about picking up the names for sugar. Okay. Next thing also is to pay attention to where on the ingredient list. So you're going to look for the added sugar on the nutrition panel. Usually it falls on the carbohydrates. It'll say total carbohydrates, say 30 grams. And then it says including X amount of added sugar, 5 grams, 10 grams, whatever. Okay. And then you want to look at the ingredient list quickly and see, is sugar listed within the first 3 to 5 ingredients? If sugar is listed in the first 3 to 5 ingredients on the entire list, that's going to be a food that you want to limit or avoid if possible. Okay. Second thing in choosing better carbs is that you want to choose those foods that are closest to the earth. Okay. So those that come straight from, you pick them from a tree or from a plant, those are the carbs that you want to have, instead of those carbs that come in a box or in a bottle from a factory. Okay. If it happens to be a factory produced carbohydrate, right, so packaged food, you're going to want to have an idea of how much fiber to the amount of carbohydrates in that boxed or packaged food. Ideally, you know, in nature, you have maybe 1 gram of fiber to 5 grams of, or rather, should I say, for every 5 grams of, it depends, it's plus or minus. But generally speaking, you want to have, for every 5 grams of carbohydrates, at least 1 gram of fiber, right? Maybe up to every 5 to 10 grams of carbohydrates, you have at least 1 gram of fiber to offset it. But when you start getting to the point where you have a packaged food that has 30 grams of carbohydrates and only 1 or maybe 0 grams of fiber, then the balance is very much off for that packaged food. You don't have to worry about the ratio too much if food is coming from the plant or from a tree, right? But this is important when it comes to packaged boxed foods, okay? And then of course, okay, maybe it might be that you have carbohydrates and the ratio is, 30 grams carbs to 0 grams of fiber or to 1 gram. So then you now have to get friends from elsewhere. Maybe it won't be fiber in this case as the friends, but you have to get some protein, you have to get some fat, right? So you gather the friends to go with that carbohydrate and put it as a meal, right? A more complex, wholesome, balanced meal, so to speak, okay? Now, let's get on to the practical tips. So some practical tips. This is point 3. Practical tips for eating carbs smart every day, right? First tip, and this might be overlooked, but this is super important. You should just plan your meals around the vegetables. So usually vegetables might be an afterthought. It might be something you put to the side and you might get to it or you might not get to it. But build meals around vegetables, whatever variety of vegetables. The more types, the better. The more colors, the better, because that's an indication of more nutrients, okay? If it's breakfast and maybe you're not necessarily eating a more savory breakfast with vegetables, then build that breakfast around a variety of plant-based food. So you can have some chopped nuts, you can have seeds, okay? So build it. You can have fruits as well instead of vegetables, right? So build breakfast around a whole variety of friends if it comes to that, right? Now, okay, we said you don't necessarily have to measure portions, because if it's a naturally occurring starch or carb, then the portion will take care of itself. But you might have to measure, because it might be something from a box. So a good rule of thumb is that your portion of carbohydrate should be the same as a cupped handful, right? So different hand sizes depending on our size, on the size of our bodies, and so that's a good general rule of thumb. Certainly you don't want to have more than a cupped handful of carbohydrates, generally speaking. Okay, now third point in terms of just helping carbs work for you in a better fashion is to consider some amount of movement after you have carbs. So carbs give you more energy compared to some of the other nutrients, protein, fat, right? You get like a very quick spurt of energy from carbs. Now, if you're not going to burn that energy, it's going to get stored. That's the problem with carbs and simple carbs versus complex carbs. So you want to try and move around, even if it's some squats. You get up and just do some squats in place, or you do some steps in place, some kind of movement. So you move, you use some big muscles, the thigh muscles, the leg muscles, the buttock muscles. Those are bigger muscles that will burn energy and burn up some of that carbohydrates that you use, right? And then going back to what I said earlier about choosing those carbs that are from the land, straight from the land. And seaweed is a carbohydrate, right? That's something to see. And I created the Beam Food Pyramid, which essentially is my take on what a food pyramid should be, that helps you very easily decide what's a good food and bad food. And well, what's a good food and what's a not so good food. So the bottom of the pyramid is the primary foods, okay, and those are those from land and sea. So plant foods, fruits from trees. You have your meats from all the different types of meats, the poultry. You have your eggs. You have your milk straight from these animals. You have your nuts, your seeds. So these are your primary foods straight from the land and the sea, seaweed, fish, and so on. Then your secondary foods, that's the second tier of my Beam Food Pyramid, and those are foods that have been transformed in some way, usually transformed to increase their utility. So you crush nuts to get butter, you squeeze oil from olives or from coconuts, you might mill grain to make flour so that you can make bread, otherwise you can't do anything with the wheat, okay? You might culture milk to make cheese, you churn cream to make butter, right? You might freeze foods to preserve them, you might ferment foods to preserve them, okay? So second tier, those are foods that were transformed. And then the third or tertiary level, the third tier of the Beam Food Pyramid, are those foods that come from factories. Those are going to be your simple carbs. Those are going to be your carbs, your foods that have a lot of added sugar, and those are foods to avoid. So in trying to practically think about choosing better carbs, you want to stick with those that are closer to the bottom of the Beam Food Pyramid and avoid those that are at the tip or the apex of the Beam Food Pyramid, okay? And that is how you are going to have or eat carb smart for the rest of your life, okay? I want you all to tell me, what small change are you going to make based on what you learned in this video today? Share it in the comments below. Are you going to be checking your labels more closely to look for added sugar? Are you going to be paying attention are you going to be avoiding, foods from the third tier of the Beam Food Pyramid? Share in the comments below, what changes are you going to make to help you live a carb smart life for the rest of your life, okay? Eating carb smart is about choosing better carbs, those that come with good friends, right? Those carbs that are in good company, okay? And as Dr. Amina says, generally speaking, you should love the foods that love you back. Thank you for watching. Share this video with somebody who might benefit from this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.